So I've got my two case 155's, and I've been working on trying to figure out where I'm going to cut it to get my articulation joint. I already previously made the joint. It's going to be I'm going to mount this on the top, and this is what I call the floppy joint. That's going to be mounted below. So this could be mounted in line with the frame, and this will be mounted below the frame. So I just went on to paint, and I just kind of cut and pasted the features where I wanted to be, where I thought it looked right. And then I imported that into Fusion 360. And then you can see where the original tires were. But then I suggested to maybe make it the same length as a normal tractor, as a conventional tractor, garden tractor. And I went out and measured my Cub Cadet rider. And I spaced this out to 1,300 millimeters, which actually put the front tire a little further forward. And that actually does help me out because it gives me room for my feet, because this fender is going to be here now rather than way back here. And I may still, you'll see later that the operating station is supposed to be moved back on the forward frame, because obviously the wheel is would be here, and then the steering column would be mounted like back here. And I'm not sure if I want to do that. I think I'll probably just move the column back somewhere here and give me some more room. I am 6'5", so having a little more room in the operator station would be beneficial. Plus, when I have my kid riding with me, he sits in front of me. So anyways, I got the basic measurements on here, and this is the joint assembly, which I previously made. It has the measurements from the center to the back of this plate, and from the center to the end of this plate. And that's what those are. And then, so I came up with 650, and the other measurement on here. Well, anyways, it didn't transfer on this one as much, but that's the center line of the joint, 563. So anyways, I drew some more rectangles on here, and then I exported that to a shop drawing, and that's given me my cuts. And this is the back of the tractor in the front, 563 here and 537 there. So I've got 563 to the center here, actually being right where the steering shaft went. Actually basically right where the operator station, the front of the control tower was. Right there. And then I need some more frame material to extend the frame behind the rear wheels, or behind the front wheels. And I've got, 560 millimeters. I need 537. Plus, I have extra because I got to measure to the back of the frame box or the transmission. And I'll probably make some sort of rig that bolts into these mounts here to give me my frame members to weld to. So I'll probably make some angle iron on here or something that comes in, and that's what I'll bolt. Be a boltable. Rather than welding to that cast transmission, I'll have some angle iron to bolt to, and that'll be good to mount the rest of this frame to, and then I could weld my joint in. Obviously the steering assembly is going to get cut out. And this will get mounted right in the middle. And it'll be good. So now I'm going to cut the frame on this one. And I'll get some of this extra stuff out of here. Probably have to take the... I was trying to preserve the hydraulic lines as long as possible. And then I'll probably flop the transmission over and lift it up and take those off. And I'll end up shortening those to what I need them to be. So now I'm gonna cut the frame. So I've just made the cut. Unfortunately, the steering frame bottom stays on this part of the frame, so it helps keep the alignment. And remove this. Save that for later. And now take my hydraulic lines off, prep the frame, and tack the joint on. And now I'll lift it up. One of the best tools ever is this 500-ton hoist that I've got a ceiling, and I put a set of rollers, so I get like a 8-foot back and forth, and then I get the full width of the garage. It makes it super handy. I can back a truck into the garage, pull an engine off the stand, off the back of the truck, with the hoist, and then roll it, toss it up on top of the shelf. And then obviously I can just lift up my stuff that I'm working on, gain access to the bottoms of them. I mean, it's no more backbreaking work. I just lift stuff up and get access to where I want them. So I'm gonna take these off. I'm gonna have to do some transmission draining, because I'm sure there's some more fluid in there. So now I've got the transmission draining on the rear axle, and just gotta do some preparation and cleaning for the weld, and then I can weld my top joint on. And that's gonna weld right on the frame right there like that. So I've got the front half cut down, and then I had my leftover pieces of the frame rail from here, and I've mounted those onto a plate that I had bent up at the local sheet metal guy. And this bolts into the rear of the transmission, those 1/2-inch bolts, so it should be pretty rugged. That's a piece of 3/8 plate. And then the factory frame rails. I don't know, I had, there was actually about 4 inches of frame rail that I threw away. And I still think it worked out pretty good. I just kept them. You got the mounting plates. It's actually reinforcing a 3/8 bar underneath here for the motor mount, the old motor mount. But it gives me something to bolt to or whatever. And then I have these bushings for that were the lift bushings, the ones that are up front here. And I was thinking I was just gonna, I could have cut it anywhere on this piece. And I was like, well, I might want to use those bushings for something. And so then I went and had I had to cap this off so I could put my bracket on, leave a little bit of gap on the ends and stuff. But then I was thinking I'll actually make it more rugged. I think I'll do is put this inside the frame rail, and I can make a really nice fully boxed end section. But coincidentally, where the bushings are, I'm gonna have to cut off like a 1/4 inch of frame rail off the end. but I don't think that'll be any throw off my angles too much. I figured out the length of this. I had my sheet. I need 537 millimeters on the front, and I measured from the center line of the axle, and this is 122 millimeters to the back of the plate. I need 415 millimeters left over frame rail, which is what I got. So I'll knock off 5 millimeters on the end of that. And then I was working on the front of the back transmission, and I got one of those plates all cut up, ready to go on here. And that'll be welded on the front, and then I can meld my bushing on. This will get welded onto here, and then my tractor halves will be connected. And I did semi-screw up. I welded this on the bench. I put the frame rails on the wrong side. It should have been on top, flush with this. I don't think it really makes any difference because I got so much adjustability with where I can weld this onto the front of this frame. And I had a third one of those plates welded up. So when I finally decide to cut the front half of the front frame, because I'm picturing that so the seat's going to be mounted back here over the joint. So this might be mounted, almost onto the top of the transmission plate or something. I want I could either keep it long, but then you have the whole front end sticking out, and then you have the motor. It's just gonna be wicked long. So I think I'm gonna put the seat over the joint here. My bottom of the seat's directly over the joint. So the steering column could very well be mounted to here instead of way forward. And then the engine will be mounted on top of this assembly here. And then the frame's gonna be notched off about here. And so as far as the steering and shifter, the shifter is gonna be, we have to use probably push-pull cables anyways to get to the rear transmission anyway, so it doesn't really matter where that's mounted. I was gonna go with a hydraulic steering, so that doesn't matter. These are just cables. So all of this can go away. And so that doesn't make any difference at all as to where I mount the engine. And I've got the engine all set up over here. I still need to make an adapter plate for that. I could mount it. There's nothing that says that the engine has to be mounted forwards or backwards. I could have the engine mounted what you call it the wrong way or whatever. Let me see if I put this out of the way. So I could put I could put the engine like that, or I could go this way. I don't care. It wouldn't matter to me. Don't know. If I have it this way, I might have more access to the pump and stuff. I don't know. Like I said, it really doesn't matter being a full hydraulic. But that's something to think about as I continue to progress on my build. So I did some more welding, and I got the joint bolted to the front, or welded the front half, which is bolted via the plate. And I did cut those extra 1/2 inch material out of the frame here, so it lines up, so I was able to fully box the rear of that cross member in. I welded in the front cross member on the back half of the tractor, and I got the joint in place, so now it's able to steer. I still obviously have to put the so-called floppy joint underneath here. The tractor is quite long, and I'm going to shorten it by quite a bit, of course. So I'm thinking that the seat is going to be mounted relatively over the joint, mounted off the front half of the frame with like an angle here. So the back half will swivel underneath the seat. The steering column, this whole section is going to get mounted much closer to here, and I'm almost thinking it may be right here. And then the engine will be mounted over here on top of that plate. So all I have to do next is cut this mount off and move the column back to where it kind of sits. The brakes, those can get operated either way, so I could just have this linkage reversed over the back. So I have a brake pedal over here. So I'm kind of thinking that I'll put the, so I couldn't help myself. I went down to the shed and got some more body parts. So the rear fender just gets bolted on like it is. I'd probably get rid of this little section, which was a little storage bin where the seat mounted to, but take this off, maybe make a little mini bed of some sort, you know, like not just a little box to put some junk in. And obviously I'm going to have my 3-point stuff back here, so maybe the cylinder's on top, pulling rather than, I don't know. And then I wanted to put hydraulic PTO shaft. So I put the seat in place. And, you know, obviously this seat's going to be mounted off of here. So you won't, you know, the back of the tractor will be swinging, but you won't necessarily, you know, you won't be swinging with the steering wheel, of course, and the pedals. And the front fender we get put there, but obviously the center section will have to get removed, and that'll give me room to put the hydraulic pump. I mean, there's a lot of room behind the engine right now. So, I mean, obviously it needs to come back a little bit from where the column is, and I'll have to see. I'll measure my garden tractor out in the shed, you know, how it's the spacing between the seat and the steering wheel. I mean, it doesn't look too far off, but I may end up lifting the column up a bit, and then it gets the hood higher so that it fits over the valve covers. But the engine, being that it's so much wider, I may actually also try to see about taking 2 hoods and making one, or my sheet metal guy is pretty handy. Maybe easier just to make one from scratch. So I won't have to weld that seam and try to get that all done. But still have the exact same shape and mounting. and just widen it so it gets bigger. But I mean, I think it's looking like a tractor already. I'm only 2 days into it.